Opportunities with my partner in crime with the modern workforce, Andreas Mahias. How are we today?
Stephanie, thank you. How you doing?
Very well, very well. It's a good time of the week just before the good old 4th of July to do a live stream. And as people are sort of getting their head wrapped around, probably I'm going to bet more of a long weekend, never mind the 4th of July. To talk about the workplace and specifically today's topic, misinformation in the workplace. I was riffing around a little bit about, how are we going to keep the modern workforce fresh? And obviously, how we speak with one another, how we trust each other or don't trust each other has a lot to do with misinformation in the workplace. What do you think, Andres?
Yeah, I mean, the last 30 years, we have truly evolved in the realm of access to information overall, right? We went from having to wait until you got home to look up something in a book or be limited to what was printed on a magazine or newspaper, right? This was just a couple decades ago. Now we have all the information that we need available to us in our pockets, in our phones. And how we translate that to the workplace environment matters, right? Obviously, the larger the organization out there, the slower it is to turn around and make steps forward and take short and long strides towards that goal. But yeah, I mean the best people out there that are doing it the best way, they're consistent. They it's part of their DNA, right? Keeping information top of mind for their employees and their customers, even for that matter, is top of mind.
And I would agree with that, but I think as we start to strip it down, I'm going to sort of get a little personal about this in terms of my own experiences and my own frustration with it. We have these communication devices, which all are all in one now: phone, text, computer, all of it together. And I find that what is lacking in it is a standard of how to communicate on these things. For example, you can have people that prefer phone over text, so they ignore any text you might send to them. Could be vice versa. Email is a huge thing where, people prioritize you or choose to ignore you because they can. And they can have seen it, once, twice, or never, but choose to ignore it. I'm guilty of it for sure when people are cold knocking on my door or I haven't had any previous conversation with them. So, what I think needs to change is the rule book in the same way there used to be an Emily Post book of etiquette that I really feel, and people, I guess I'm dating myself, everybody, hello. But I still feel we need something like that today because for example, I've got a nephew and, I was texting him and I thought, okay, he's of a certain generation. For sure, he'll return the text. No, he didn't. Why? Because he likes the phone. So what's your take on that? And particularly because, you've got kids that you're helping to coach how to use these devices.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the the macro solution to the problem you just described, and I'm by no means I'm an expert at this, but I have been part of at least seven top 500 S&P 500 organizations over the past 2 decades.
Yeah.
And what you're talking about internally, they call it having an omni-channel presence,
Mm.
right? you have to, like, if you want to win in the communications space internally as an organization, you have to go omni-channel. And my understanding from my limited exposure and understanding of what omni-channel uh, is having the message or messages across newsletters, emails, text messages, website, social media, you name it. Like the meta narrative that the company wants to carry on can be found on any channel at any given time, and it's the same meta narrative, and the employee understands that, they recognize that it doesn't change, it's always the same. The content might be different because if I'm on social, I might see the content in a particular way. But if I'm in a meeting and it's our monthly sales meeting, I might be looking at internal charts and numbers and KPIs and metrics. And if I'm looking at a newsletter, they might be introducing this new product that is going to be launching next week. And as an employee, all of a sudden, everything is making sense, right? Because I'm getting little bits and pieces of the bigger picture. Companies that do this really, really well, they are winning in engagement with their people.
I think that was really well said. I've never heard the term meta narrative before, but I think you're absolutely on to something. I mean, certainly in the workplace, as opposed to in your personal life using your communication devices. Yes, it is really on the leadership and the human resources departments and any part of that responsibility, which is involving the people culture, to determine, to your very point, of what that meta narrative needs to be. So since you brought it up, Andreas, can you give us some examples? Let's go a little micro here in terms of what does that look like? A meta narrative, you don't have to use the current company you're with or even name a company, but it's curious let's start to apply it now. So, you've got a new employee, they come on, they're working in the sales department. What kind of stuff?
I'll give you two examples. Both are empirical examples in first person. I used to work about, 15, 20 years ago for a retail clothing store company.
Yeah.
This was a women's clothing brand. They owned two different channels. They had a more formal, more expensive, more formal clothing line, and then they have a more casual, more affordable clothing line. Two complete different stores, right? For this particular season that I was working there, the meta narrative working for this company was to surprise and delight the customer. That's it. Everything that we did, sales, operation, marketing, execution, needed to have that touch, that flavor, that DNA, that component built in within it. If I hire someone, I needed to hire someone that I could trust, that when they were helping a customer, they were going to surprise and delight the customer. What do I mean by that? The customer will walk into the fitting room. Oh yeah, let me take your clothes off. Let me take your clothes from you. Follow me to the fitting room.
Yeah, we're talking about a slip there. Let me take your clothes off. That's a little humor we're injecting in today's live stream.
I know, right? That's pretty standard. I mean, most stores that you go to that have a fitting room attendant, will, half of them won't. Half of them will just be like, follow me, open the door, take you in. But good customer service will say, can I have those? Great, please follow me. And they will go in and they will kind of like put them in a rack in the fitting room, right?
Yes.
What we would do different is when the women were shopping around, walking around, and they will be holding on to their clothes, to their items, right? We knew they were going to go into the fitting room. So we would anticipate, and we will go up to them and say, can I start a fitting room from you and take those from you? Surprise. That was an element of, oh yeah, sure. That would be great. My arm is falling numb. I have 13 pieces of clothes. I'm still shopping through the sales rack. Thank you so much, right? But then we wouldn't stop there. We will take it into the fitting room, and we will display the clothing items inside the fitting room for her. So we will put kind of like the outfits that she had. So instead of putting them stacked all stacked, and we will display it. And so we will make the fitting room kind of like this welcoming, when she will walk in, she will see all her outfits displayed, right? And then once she will walk into the fitting room, we will go back out to the floor, because now we saw what type of styles and color palettes she was into. We will bring outfits from the sales floor as a suggestion. I'm riffing here, but that is how to interpret the surprise and delight in just one aspect of that business, right? That was the meta narrative of that company, and they did it very, very successful. They were very successful with it. They gained a lot of traction. They gained a lot of customers. They took market shares from a lot of other stores that their focus was not that, right?
Well, let's talk about what delight and surprise actually means. I mean, everything you just described, I've experienced negatively and positively. If you walk out of a positive experience, I'm going to bet that even just laying the clothes out in the change room makes you appreciate more what you took off the rack to begin with and bought it in, and you're making a more discerning decision. So you've won respect of the store you're in and how they're dealing with you. And this then leads to more sales. I mean, at the end of the day, nobody's going to buy what they don't want to buy. But if you, the customer, chose this, that's now in the change room, this is the retailer's opportunity to blow it up, so to say, and really put under a microscope what it is that they could be buying. Aside from the fact that they've earned respect because just taking the clothes away from them, to your point, was uncomfortable.
Right.
And I think, I don't know, is that true when men go shopping? Do they have the same experience?
This was a women's only clothing store.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
There's very small amount of guys that actually try anything on at the store. they take it home. But let me give you another example. The company that I'm working for right now, what a meta narrative they have,
Mm-hmm.
and how they communicate this on via an omni-channel presence. Okay. Asa Abloy, it's no surprise, they are a publicly traded company.
Mm-hmm.
They're in dozens of countries, and part of their growth strategy is to grow by acquisition. This is known across the entire company, across the entire industry vertical, across multiple markets, and across multiple countries. So here's what they do really, really, really well. They celebrate when they acquire a company. They make announcements repeatedly internally on social media. They make announcements within that region. They celebrate with the local partners. They tell all their clients that they are now acquiring. They celebrate what's about to happen within the acquisition. How the local, this company that's been owned over 4 generations in Indiana, it's now been acquired by Asa Abloy, and now in partnership, they're going to be able to continue to service the clientele that they've been and upgrade their machinery and technology and go global, and now they're going to be able to perhaps manufacture not just in Indiana and in that region, but now they have access to 10 other countries, right? They do a fantastic job at conveying the story that basically says, when you partner with Assa Abloy and when we merge with you, everybody wins. It's a win-win for everyone.
So let's take a silo though. I want to take a silo. So yes, I guess everybody wins. But if the HR department, for instance, were to get a hold of this, and then the operations department got a hold of this, and the sales department got a hold of this, what in your experience would you say it makes different, or how do they carry that message throughout the culture, which enriches the culture? So whatever acquisition happened in the last 6 months or currently or whatever, it really shows itself a year from now.
Well, and the reputation that at least this company has built within the space of mergers and acquisition, right? Because then there's the concept of mergers and acquisition. We're not in the business of consolidating industries and slashing departments, right? Actually, the complete opposite. If Assa Abloy buys a company, Assa Abloy only buys companies that can continue to exist and withstand on their two own feet. And both of the entities go into this partnership and relationship knowing so. But to answer what I think you're bringing is, there's very little worry or risk or exposure that these departments have, because those people are needed. Those people just become Assa Abloy employees now, so they have built a fantastic reputation. And to your point, why we started talking about their meta narrative across the industry is very well known, even by people outside of the organization. And that's really hard to do. That is very, very hard to do, for you to let the DNA of your company be known and understood, not just by the people you employ, but by your consumers and the people that you don't employ.
Okay, so you're an employee, and you may want to just let people know a little bit about Assa Abloy if they aren't already aware of it. I mean, from a security, a door security, a location security, I kind of covers it, but you could say it better, I'm sure.
Yeah, so Assa Abloy is the world's leader in access control products and services. Within that, we service multiple verticals: hospitality, infrastructure, government, medical, education, and most recently, over the past 3 or 4 years, Assa Abloy has moved into the construction space, which is how you and I, met each other, and we've been talking now for several months. And within the construction space, Assa Abloy owns BioSite, which is a company in the UK that provides access control and security, and then CrewSite, which is a company here that I work for in the US. And so they are very, very good, very, very strict about staying in their lane and just becoming the best within that lane. They don't go wide, they go deep. They stay in their lane and they continue to dig deeper and go higher, right? And that's what has made them very, very successful for a long, long time. And that's what clients really appreciate about the company.
So tell me something. When we're talking meta narrative, in your own experience, you're in sales. How, if something were to be acquired by Assa Abloy tomorrow, how would you, as an employee in this particular department, help to enrich that with your prospects and customers?
if something is acquired within Cruside, which is the organization of Asa Abloy that I am a part of,
Mm-hmm.
it's being acquired to be part of my day-to-day line of work. So immediately, and I've been with Asa Abloy and Cruside for about 6 months now. So in the span that I've been here, we haven't had an acquisition within my organization, but there's been several within ASA. But I would assume that within 30 days, we will be ready to talk about that product and offer that product to our existing lineup of clientele. And because we only acquire products and services that are already within the channel and the space that we're in, it's a smooth transition that it's only going to complement what we are already doing. I don't have to change my PowerPoint presentation, my slide deck. I don't have to change my script. I just need to add that particular hardware or service that that the main company have just purchased, so to speak, and added to our repertoire.
Okay, so I want to talk a little bit now about the internal technologies, right? And so I understand the philosophy. You have to have a good meta narrative, as you have explained and have experienced. I mean, I can say in my own experience, some more or less, but not, I would say, not to a formal degree is my experience. But when people are using technologies internally, how do you think that remains consistent and that those technologies are accessible to everyone? I worked for one company and I found that they were not evenly distributed, let's say. There were certain departments, even I would call one out, but I'm not going to reveal the company or anything, but used to hoard the technologies. So how do we ensure that transparent communication happens between employees? And let's sort of play this out. What happens in cases where they aren't distributed evenly throughout the different departments or even within departments?
In my experience, at least the companies that I have worked for in the past decade, as a supplier of technology solutions in the construction industry, the amount of tools that are being actually used on the day-to-day, they're dismal. They're very few. Half of the software and tools that a company buys, pays for, and rolls out don't get used. Half of them don't get used. I would even go and say even more than half. And you're right. Sometimes some people in some teams, they, 3 people have their own 1 or 2 apps that they like to use. This other person likes to use SharePoint and spreadsheets. This other person likes to do Google and Google Chrome and Google Docs, right? And all of a sudden you have 3 camps.
Yes.
You have the camp that is using the company provided apps and technology tools. Then you have the SharePoint, Microsoft Excel camp, and then you have the Google camp, right? The thing is, that only happens, in my opinion, because it's allowed to happen. That is more of a leadership issue than what technology is there and it's available to do the job. Obviously, because here's the problem that we in not just in construction really, but construction is experiencing this, I feel like, for the past decade. When I started in this space, my product and my technology was a nuance. It was new, it was different, it was revolutionary. 10 years later, it's like it's everywhere. We have competitors everywhere. Everybody knows about it, and it's no big deal now. There's so much overlap in construction of tools that do it all. Every tool today and every dashboard and every SaaS wants to be the all in all, one stop. If I hear one more time that you're trying to sell me on X, Y, and Z one stop shop for your project management, it's not gonna happen. I don't know why companies continue to even talk
But
about.
explain in your experience, because I have my own feelings on it. Well, why do you feel that? I mean, it's certainly why intelligent construction opportunities exist, but you tell me why you feel so strongly, in which I happen to agree.
Because people, here's in construction, um and bear with me here because I'm going to go around the bush here a little bit because I want to paint a bigger picture. In construction, we are still functioning very decentralized when it comes to execution. It's people, it's individual people who execute tasks in construction, right? You might, a team of project managers and a team of electrical, concrete, plumbers, right? MEP guys, they might have one or two pieces of software that their company gave them to complete the job. But they're only going to use what is comfortable to them at that moment, what makes their life easier for them at that moment, what makes most sense for them at that moment,
And what they have to. If they have to, they do it.
and what they have to, and if they have to, they'll do it. But because there's so many software and technology tools out there available, at the end of the day, if the project is getting done, and this is kind of like the necessary root of all evils, because at the end of the day, everyone just wants the job to get done. At the end of the day, the bank wants the job finished, the insurance wants the job finished, the local municipality wants the job completed, the owner wants the job completed, the construction management firms wants the job completed, and every subcontractor wants the. So if the project is moving along and tracking along, people don't care how you do it. People won't ask a lot of questions on how you do it.
Nobody does, though. When the building goes up, people don't go, where did you use Procore on that?
Right.
Did you use BIM at any point on this, particular floor? And what were the flaws that it picked up? And, how did that VR component work? But it's true of anything. I mean, but it's no different. The analogy for me is the same thing in terms of your machinery or your cordless drill. I mean, nobody's saying, what kind of tape did you use when you did all that drywalling? It's the same difference. And I think it's a great call out, Andreas. I think it's important that we understand that, or at least agree. But when I was talking internally, in my experience, I think you called it out earlier. You either are handed the option of using Google Suite for your documents and for your presentations and for your spreadsheets, or the other side, which is Microsoft, which has become ubiquitous everywhere, which is why they've been able to expand either side of their portfolios because we are in one way or another married to them. But I was thinking more along the lines of like specialty tools, like the Dun and Bradstreets out there, the very expensive and proprietary kind of databases. This is where, when I talked about the silos, there has to be leadership first always. And as we all know, I have to say it, even though they may try, a lot of cultures fail in leadership because they're not even aligned at the top within those silos. But in the ideal situation where they are, I feel that employees should be able to go to those silos and have them just confront the issue and deal with the issue. But I find in my own experience, politics has always stood in the way. Favoritism, whatever you want to call it.
Well, and then we also have the predicament that within the construction industry, most construction companies, I'm talking about now the general contractor level, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're decentralized in the sense that they operate by business unit.
Right.
They really operate by region and by
But
business unit.
most businesses do, though,
Most
Andreas.
businesses do.
Yeah.
But here's the thing: so technically, keeping that in mind, the name of the company really becomes like a known brand.
Mm.
The name of the company is just a brand, right? Why? Because if I'm a project executive, and if any project executive out there are listening, and if I'm wrong, forgive me. I know there's tons of other things that you do that are a lot more important that I'm about to say, but it's my understanding that part of the job of a project executive is sell, to sell their services, to sell their general contractor's license on a project, to win that project so that they can be the general contractor of record. Okay. And what do they use? What is their biggest tool that they use? It's that big name brand of the general contractor, right? That carries weight, right? Brassfield and Gorey, Balfour Beatty, right? Gilbane, Robinson Morton, Turner Construction, DPR, PCL, all these NV2A, all these Hunter Roberts, L&M, Len Lee's, all these names that they just carry weight, right?
Well, I actually I just want to interrupt you for a second because I feel that you did say that they are just a brand, but I've always believed that they become almost bigger than the people and the culture that run the show. It's like, what does Coke mean? I mean, there's not anywhere in the world where you can say Coca-Cola and it isn't understood. To me, as an entrepreneur, that's when I will know that intelligent construction opportunity has hit a certain level of market recognition, is when it becomes something that's disassociated with me and it stands on its own. And I think that's very true of Assa Abloy. I think it's very true of some of those major construction companies you called out. I mean, certainly within the culture, people know them. But then when you can, Turner Construction to me, well, if you haven't fallen off a turnip truck, even if you're not within the construction industry, that resonates in some way, shape, or form, or PCL, or any of the number of names that you reamed off. Your microphone's coming in and out. Can't hear you.
Let's see. It does. How about now?
Better. Yeah.
It does, but I disagree with you in that sense, in the point
Okay.
you just made. And I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
The company itself, although it carries weight and recognition, it's never larger. The company itself, it never overtakes the actual project executive or the project manager of a particular project. Here and here's why, because let's go back to what we were talking about of technology selection, why there's so many people, why there's so many teams using different things. Why is it that, quote unquote, they can? Well, they do it because they can. Well, they do it because they're allowed to do it. Why? It's because, Andres Construction is an actual company in Texas, but I'm not talking about Andres Construction. I'm doing a hypothetical, because Andres Construction in Florida, it's employing Johnny, general Johnny, the project executive, Johnny, the project manager, and whatever Johnny wants in his business unit to do that project, and whatever services and tools and software Johnny's going to use, Johnny's going to use it. And Andres Construction is not going to tell Johnny anything because this is Johnny's baby. This is Johnny's contract. Johnny is ultimately responsible for that project. He's the one managing the dough. He's managing the people. He's responsible for the entity itself, the fictitious name of the entity truly has no risk in this other than name recognition. And if something goes wrong, they're gonna get the name of the company it's gonna get dirt. But it's Johnny, the general contractor that has a license, that is running that district, that is running that region, that is running that business unit, that went after the state contract, government contract, hospital contract, stadium contract, and Johnny won it. But it's now Johnny the one that's responsible for delivering on time on that contract. This is why, and then multiply what I just said times dozens and dozens and dozens of business units that any given company has throughout the country. Okay? Different than your example from Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola would not allow a manufacturing plant manager to deviate from their operating book.
Right.
We have a way we operate, and every factory and every plant manager, it's only going to do it this way. That is not the DNA of construction. That has never been the DNA of construction. And I don't see, unless things change on paper, when it comes to who carries the ultimate risk, who carries the ultimate responsibility on paper, I don't think it's going to change going
All right,
into
let
the
me
future.
flip that for you. All right, so let's jump ahead 10 years from now. I hear you, and I think you make a very, very valid point of where we are right now. And I meant the entity becomes almost another employee, is what I feel when I was saying that, and I still feel it. But I want to do a deeper dive. Is we're sort of turning the 40-minute corner here. Is okay, so the culture of construction, the project executive has the control. It's people driven. I mean, after all, people are the culture, people are the brand. I mean, that's another way of looking at it. But if that's the case, and sometimes there is room for efficiency because of certain technologies application, and you're going to keep fighting this little war of, well, no, I only use this kind, or I don't use that, or whatever it is. I only use Microsoft, I only use Google, I don't use anything at all, I use WhatsApp. What would we do internally to start to strike what I really love, the meta narrative? How would we strike, if we could strike, or you don't feel it's possible given the nature of construction?
Here's what we're up against. Every SaaS company out there, HubSpot, Salesforce, Procore, CMIC, everybody's up against the following. It's either a project by project solution, or it's either an enterprise solution. An enterprise meaning is being adopted by,
internally up and down the org chart.
And even when something is adopted enterprise wise, and I don't see this happen, but in construction, I've been prior to my construction days and exposure, I've only been a part of two other industries. And it was what I'm about to explain. It wasn't the case, but even in construction, when a tool or a system or a software gets adopted enterprise wise, I've seen several companies that say, well, we have this available for you at a corporate level, but you still don't have to use it. You're still free to go figure any other tool that you want out there. But just know that if you use this, X, Y, and Z can happen. If you use this, you get a discount. If you use this, you save money. If you use this, maybe you get a kickback at the end of the project. If you use it, corporate earns a kickback, perhaps. I mean, there's different ways and reasons why there's the different partnerships and enterprise level agreements and whatnot. But even when enterprise level agreements get adopted in construction, very different than other industries, many times they still give them the ability to shop wherever they want to shop. And the reason why they do that, again, I'm gonna double down, is because of the way this industry is structured. Ultimately, the person that holds that license, that general contractor's license that is registered in the state of Illinois, right? That guy that goes to file the permit under his name, that guy that the bank is lending money to the owner because the owner has a contract with that guy or gal, right?
Mm-hmm.
That person is ultimately responsible for everything. Now, yes, there's collateral and there's assurance and insurance and policies and coverage and guarantees, and then you have the reason why most large projects on any given state and city, they are going to go work with really large general contractors because it's the safest thing to do. They're not going to go work with the largest general contractor of their local town. They might know them, they might like them, they might trust them, they might be family. And they're still going to say, I'm going to bring PCL and you're going to joint venture with PCL. We'll work with you. Don't get me wrong. I like you. I know you for 30 years. But this $300 million project, we're just not going to give it to you. Why? Because I will not get insurance, because I'm not going to get finance, because of a whole multitude of reasons. And they got to bring one of the big dogs in to do a joint venture.
So you've just basically explained the story of construction, which is not just construction. You're talking about infrastructure. You're talking about politics. You're talking about government. You're talking about literally what makes construction so absolutely unique from any other sector out there. Because, I mean, manufacturing is a great example of something that has, as it's gone along, whether it's lean from the Toyota way or whatever, keeps tightening up its process improvement and its continuous improvement to drive a very specific path. I mean, I've talked to a lot of construction technology vendors and startups actually that think that they're going to beat this. And the only thing to me that will beat it, at least for certain things, and this is the side that excites me with intelligent construction opportunities and the startups I'm working with, is because they are actually trying to fix something in the same way I keep making the analogy of a cordless drill or an excavator or whatever. You wouldn't bring a raft of bicycles on a job site to replace what the excavator can do. And until that is what a construction technology is capable of doing, where it becomes the essential tool in the essential tool belt, then it won't change. And I think that's why. And I also think, in my opinion, there is a disconnect between leadership and leadership's choices versus those that are on the site and on the job and are applying these tools. That's where I think there's also a disconnect. I really want to thank you today. I think I wasn't sure how the conversation was going to go. I kind of like that about it. That's how I try and conduct all intelligent construction opportunities live streams, because I loved what you said. A couple things today, but the delight and surprise is really important. And you brought the delight and the surprise today, Andre, and I really appreciate it. I think it was good. I mean, we didn't have interaction today. I saw some, there's people that were jumping on and jumping off. But rest assured, Andre and I are going to still keep going at this, and further kicking out this humongous issue around the modern workforce and what does it mean. I when I went out and I was doing the social media for this before today, there's other topics that we're going to get into that will continue, that are in the same kind of vein. And we'd sure appreciate any feedback, even after you may not see this live, but if you see a recording and you want to put in anything in the comments, we welcome. Or obviously you can DM myself or Andreas directly. Let's keep the conversation going. Any last words now?
That's it. I mean, going back to the beginning of our conversation is having a meta narrative delivered by an omni-channel is the way to go. Our space and our industry and the information within it is changing so much. There's so much information out there on mobile apps and websites and social media. Our employees and our workers and our subcontractors and the vendors and the suppliers, we're all looking at information out there, and it's in this. Have you heard that analogy of the Amazon packages in the air, like all bumping against each other because they're being shipped from one? There's any given time, there's millions of Amazon packages up in the air, right? Being delivered from side to side, right? That's how information is today in construction. And companies that are winning, that are doing this right, they're focused on their narrative and they're delivering that on every possible channel available to their internal people and their external customers.
And again, I mean, this is where the continuous improvement comes from. This is where the consistency comes from. The one lesson I learned late in life was rinse and repeat. Really means something, because when you rinse and repeat, you can go deep, and you just don't go wide, and you just don't go big for the sake of going big so that you own everything and have everything and so on and so forth. And I really think that meaning comes when you go deep in most anything in your life. And, even professional athletes to me are great examples. How do you get great at doing things with a tennis ball or a golf ball? I mean, you just keep doing it, and eventually you get great at it. And it doesn't matter what green you're presented with and how far the hole is. I mean, you have held a putter in so many different situations and on so many different greens that you understand how to make that putter do the things that you need to do so that ball's more likely to go in the hole. And anyway, I went down a rabbit hole. That's me. But again, I want to thank you so much. And again, if anybody was listening has questions, I think you know where you can find us. Thanks a lot,
Stephanie.
Thank you. And
Take
we'll
care.
see you on the other side. Thank you.
All right.